Hey everybody, this is Peter Palmiotti of Human Art Studios, and this is Making Comics and Art. And just off the top, I did a live stream. It might have been a little clunky on Facebook earlier, showing off some artwork I got for sale. If you're interested in such things, go check it out. Maybe I'll put the link to that here in the video description box later. My brother launched on Kickstarter earlier today the Amanda Connor art book, which is already funded. I think it was something like 68,000 or something. So congrats to them. That's awesome. Just got funded in a couple hours, I guess. In cat news, Millie went to go get fixed today. That's the mother. She had 2 litters, only 3 kittens survived, and all 3 of them are doing well. But finally got her fixed. She'll be there for the night. It's like vet new policy or something or another. But we'll see her tomorrow. And heard she's doing well. And I am working on, this is Chris Gray's piece that he penciled up of The Pit. So I'm inking it. And today we are talking with Gabriel Mangum. Welcome.
Hey, what's up, guys? Thrilled to be here. So,
and we have Dave in the chat. Welcome, Dave. So yeah, we're going to be talking about Operation Recall. So let me share that out. The buttons. Share screen. And we'll get there in a second. And here we go. All right, campaign. So how'd you get mixed up with this?
First and foremost, man, I'm a big nerd. That's the simple answer. I'm a big G.I. Joe fan, and one of the golden standard websites for G.I. Joe archiving is called 3djoes.com, and I've been following these guys for years. It is ran by a guy named Carson Metaxas. I hope I said that right. I'm really tired, so if I did, I'm sorry, Carson. If I didn't pronounce that right, I'm sorry, Carson. But Carson does a phenomenal job at archiving G.I. Joe and all of its releases from 82 to 94 and as much pre-production material as he can. He's been big on archiving the artwork of G.I. Joe for several years now. He's released a lot of books. He just released for pre-order, a omnibus hardcover that collects all of the Art of G.I. Joe books that 3D Joe's has produced. So it's just a massive piece of fan service, and it's just a giant history tool for everything G.I. Joe from the 80s and 90s. And so since that's something that I love, I follow them actively, and I found out that Carson was bringing back the original G.I. Joe design team to launch a brand new toy line. So the character that you see right there on the video is named Ritello. That is the launch guy. So that's who started all of this. He's a communications expert, and that's actually Carson's original creation. Operation Recall is it's a sister line basically to G.I. Joe, and it's G.I. Joe in every way but the name. It's O-ring action figures, just like the 80s and 90s, just like what I've got right here, this Alley Viper. Recall is going to be made in the same way, same form factor, same card designs as the original Joe stuff, and it's made by the original team. It's a really special project because, like I just mentioned, that's Carson's character, and the whole thing is fan driven. So basically what we're doing here is fans have created concepts that are going to be brought into reality by the original design team. Guys like Ron Rudat, Mark Pennington, Kirk Bozigian, Larry Hama, Doug Hart, he's painting the cards. It's just a phenomenal project overall.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's a huge page. I'll scroll down. Is tons that are showing off here, and I got the link in the video description box, so you can. If you're watching this live, or if you're watching this later, you can go check it out. It's so many drawings and people involved, like you said, and character designs. It's pretty crazy.
So yeah, so like how I specifically got involved was they opened up the floor to the fans and they had submissions. And so I entered in the last week, and I was one of 177 original entrants that fought to become a figure concept. And I ended up coming into the final 16 draft. And then from there, I got organized to be Wave 1, Figure 1. So after Rotella, which is technically the bonus figure of the wave, I am actually the launch figure. And by me saying my character, Breacher, who you'll find at the top of the campaign when it shows the first figures, Breacher is basically my self-insertion into the G.I. Joe lexicon as a character and as a figure. Anybody that knows me knows I'm known for a few things, and that is my ponytail and my backwards hat and my goatee, all of which you will find on Breacher right there in his original design. And I even gave him my actual Aussie, who is named Falcon. So he's an accessory that I designed with the figure. And when I say that I designed it, basically what's going on here is all of these concepts are going to get refined into a final design. So what I did there was I did some quick engineering turnarounds and accessory breakdown and the presentation art, which is in color there. From there, my design specifically is going to go to Mark Pennington, who, if you guys aren't familiar with Mark Pennington, he designed probably some of your favorite G.I. Joe toys of the past. He designed Snake Eyes V3 from 1989 with the visor and the knives across the chest. He did the hooded Storm Shadow when he joined G.I. Joe back in 1988. He's also responsible for the Alley Viper from 1989. Outback, the list goes on. So basically what Mark's going to do is he's going to refine my design. He's going to send that to Kirk Bozigian, who is the original brand manager. Kirk's going to add any additional notes of possible features or changes that he wants, send it back to Mark. Mark's going to then finalize it, go back. That will then go to Sculpt from this guy named Bill Merklin, who sculpted figures from Recondo all the way through Pathfinder and the original G.I. Joe line. And if you're not familiar with some of the names that I'm stating, 3D Joe's is a great website to go and check out. That way you can maybe get a better frame of reference as far as what I'm talking about for everybody listening. But from there, it's going to go through all of the production stages, from test shotting to paint masters, final engineering samples, and then production. And then in December of 2023, we're expected to have these in hand.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So many crazy designs too.
Oh yeah, it definitely you can see the heart of the fan base here because there's a lot of passion. As far as my design goes, because I can really only speak for myself with Operation Recall. I designed mine very specifically to fit into a certain niche frame of G.I. Joe, and that was the year of 1988 into 1989, when things started to break a little bit from the standard like Vietnam era designs that were being used to influence G.I. Joe. Something that I always thought was important in G.I. Joe, and if you go back and you look at the early 80s figures, is it's very practical. It's practicality with a bit of personality, and so that's what I personally did for mine. I went with something that would have slotted right in next to a guy like Shockwave to fight, say, the Alley Viper. Shockwave's also a Mark Pennington character. And so it was actually really appropriate when I found out that Mark was going to be refining my design, that he is the creator of characters that I designed my character to go right against. And if I'm not mistaken, Ron and Mark actually personally chose what characters they wanted to refine for final designs. And so I'm honored to have Mark working on my figure. Mark also inked over Greg Capullo in his early issues of Spawn.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot of like
So,
fanboy giddiness to this for me.
I bet. And so there's 18 days left on the campaign, over 200,000. Yeah, I looked at just really quickly. I looked at his Carson's previous campaigns. He's done phenomenally. So it's really something that people are jumping into for sure.
Oh, absolutely. It has been a smashing success. I mean, I actually didn't see the Kickstarter launch. I was late by about 10 minutes, and it was basically almost funded when I finally saw the campaign.
Oh wow, that's awesome. Is there anything on this page that you want to see or talk about, or can we just drop it for now?
We can probably drop it for now if it's running your internet down. There's tons of great concepts, and I just highly suggest anybody that is really interested to go and look at it themselves. That way they can scroll through, because it's a little hard to talk about it in real time since it does keep the stream lagging a little bit.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We have Greg. Welcome.
But yeah, man, this is my foray into toy design, and a lot of guys, and really what it is, it's a dream come true for myself and everybody involved. Because I know that a lot of us, I mean, I personally, of course, did not grow up in the 80s in the height and prime of G.I. Joe, but I was raised on it. So really my dad's kind of responsible for this. It is without a doubt a dream come true. And I know that a lot of people would throw hands for this kind of an opportunity. And so it is just a big, big honor to be part of such a massive project, something with a lot of heart, a lot of fans behind it. The community has been awesome. Just getting to chat with everybody, all the different concept creators. Like there's actually like little kids that design characters. This kid named Alexander Mural designed Shh on the campaign, which is the silent ninja with a prosthetic leg, which is just a fun concept. I drew a piece for the kid that I'm gonna send out this week, because I just that made me real reminiscent of when I was a kid, seeing a 10-year-old designed a figure for this. I would have absolutely jumped at the opportunity when I was the same age. So I got a kick out of that, and I wanted to make sure the kid was inspired, because I always remember artists, even if I had never met them physically, always encouraging me if they had found out who I was, maybe through my parents talking about me or whatever. So, you got to pay it forward and keep people inspired. There was another design. There's a character called Clanker and Tank, and it's basically this like swamp soldier with a rideable Galapagos tortoise that's like mutated and robotic. It's crazy concept, but it's crazy fun concept, and it's right up there in the military fantasy that people love about G.I. Joe,
Oh yeah, it's. I grew up on G.I. Joe. I mean, I wasn't really big into him and all that, but definitely I have 3 older brothers, and they had like tons of toys. I just remember like they got into like filming stuff at one point and brought all the toys into our like narrow dirt backyard, and in real time filmed like all the figures and the tanks and the jeeps and even the planes like blowing up, and like we had fireworks attached to them. It was insane.
Oh God.
Then we buried it all.
Oh. I'm sure you guys had fun, but oh wow.
Yeah.
That's a little painful to hear, man. I heard a story about some neighborhood kids that my dad grew up with, and they blew up their flag, and I was like heartbroken when I heard that, because that aircraft carrier is a desirable piece now.
Flag, yeah. Nah, this is just toys, like something to do.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, even then, now it's something to do. I mean, for fun, I've been drawing a lot of these characters on the side. Like, this is something I did that got shown off as a campaign update, and also it's been kind of hoarded out on Facebook from 3D Joe's and Operation Recall, just illustrating a couple of the characters. We got this character called Damselfly. She's a female aerial trooper. She's one of the bad guys in the line. There's this ninja right here named Cadaver. And I don't exactly know if that's an individual or a trooper yet. It's been kind of hinted at both. But either way, they're sneaking up on our main man, Rotello. So that's a piece I illustrated early on for the line, just to get people kind of hyped up for it. And a lot of people really dug it. And so I'm actually working on another piece right now. And actually, as we launched this, I was given some quick notes about some design changes that were taking place from my reference material. So I actually have to go back and alter the piece. So I won't show it for the sake of I actually drew it incorrectly now. Well, I mean, correct for what they originally were, but you know, they've changed a little bit, and so now I got to go and fix it.
I'm sure that happens a lot, you know.
It does, you know.
Yeah.
It's a fun thing.
So is designing toys something you really want to do?
I would love to.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a massive toy fan. I don't really know if you can see some of what is like kind of next to my banner over here, but you know, I got He-Man plastered all through the wall. I've got Transformers. I got the Playmates Wildcats figures. I got Spawn galore behind me. I'm a massive toy fanatic, and I always have been. I'm like I'm 21, and I'm basically a 17, 18-year-old collecting hoarder. I don't want to say hoarder, but you know, collecting has been my life essentially. Just like comics have been my life. You know, I grew up in this nerdism, if you will, because you know, I draw comics also on the side of my day job, and I've been doing that since age 16 at a real casual pace. I'm quick to point that out. You know, so I've always been involved in some level of pop culture, which is just fascinating since that's what I've always surrounded myself with. And it's really cool to be a part of it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a big toy fanatic. And so now it's crazy to think that I'll be able to hold a little piece of plastic that I not only originally designed, but two, it's based on me. So I'll be able to assimilate myself into my G.I. Joe shelf or put myself in any one of the vehicles that I have lying around. So,
that's
you know, I'll be able to kick Cobra Commander's ass or, you know, launch him into space or something, man. It's crazy to be a part of a play pattern that I cherished so much as a kid. And I know a lot of other people did. That's another trippy thing about it, is that other people are going to have the figure too. And a few hundred people, you know, maybe later, even 1,000 or so are going to have the figure. And I'll be on other people's walls and toy shelves intermixed with their Joes. That's just crazy. You know, something that I did and got to be a part of. Something else I'm wrapping my head around is Larry Hama of G.I. Joe fame. He wrote all the original file cards. He wrote Wolverine. He wrote all of the original G.I. Joe comic book run. He's an artist. He's an editor. Larry's done everything. Larry is phenomenal. He's writing my file card. So like, I wrote a character dossier for Breacher, my character, and Larry's going to read that, and he's probably going to chuckle because I'm not a writer. And he's going to modify it how he sees fit, and he's going to give me a full character dossier that's going to get chopped down to what ends up being released on the card back. That's just mind-blowing to me that somebody who wrote the personalities for all the characters that I played with as a kid, and I still go back and read all these file cards because they're just real fun to read. You know what I mean? They bring so much life into what otherwise for a lot of people is just a little toy soldier. That same man that influenced so many childhoods, so many play times, so many comic book stories. He's writing my character. He's writing me. You know what I mean? That's really, really cool. I can't state that enough, you know?
Yeah, I've seen him plenty of times at conventions, and there's always a crowd around him, you know.
Oh, yeah, dude. I love Larry, man. I got a sketch of Duke from him a couple years back at the North Texas Comic Book Show. Larry's a phenomenal dude. I absolutely love when he comes to town. I hope to see him in Texas again soon, especially when these figures start rolling out, because I'd love to sit there and chat with him physically about what he thought about my character and really just coming back. That's the thing that's awesome about this project is we're bringing these guys back, you know, and Carson's bringing these guys back. It's just awesome to see them back in action, back doing what they love. you know, one last hurrah, if you will, you know.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, you said you worked on comics. Are you published?
Yeah,
Or it's
I've
just
been
like,
published as an illustrator since age 16.
okay, excellent.
And I started doing backgrounds when I was 10.
So yeah, your father is an artist and works in comics, and so what was your first gig? Working for him, or did you work for
Yeah,
somebody else?
working on what he didn't want to draw. That's the nice way of putting it, right? So yeah, so
Right.
truth be told, the first time I ever really touched a comic book page, and this is a real technical definition. This is a massive stretch. I don't actually list this as the first ever comic I appeared in, because I literally did some broken glass and some tree limbs. You know what I mean? But it's a page in Grim Fairy
Right.
Tale 17. That's the first time I ever touched an original 11 by 17 Bristol board. But I actually went and drew backgrounds and Monster Hunter Survival Guide #1, and I worked throughout the series on backgrounds for Andrew Mangum, my dad, over Anthony Spey. And that's a Zenoscope book, so that's way back. So, you know, that's a fun little thing for everybody to hunt down. I don't find a lot of copies of them lying around anymore, but anybody that's interested, that's technically speaking my first actual published work. But when I was a teenager in high school, I got published by Fantico, the people that brought Gore Shriek to all of us. And for those of you who don't know what Gore Shriek is a horror anthology series debuting in 1986. And that is the book that is responsible for Greg Capullo. It's produced by a guy named Tom Scullin, wonderful dude. But he first published Greg Capullo, and in 2016, going into 2017, they released a 30th anniversary special called Gore Street Chronicles. And this is where I made my illustrating and writing debut. I wrote a story in there called Southern Decay, and I drew it all myself. And it was just wonderful to be a part of that. There's some of Greg's early work reprinted in this. So if you ever track down a copy of this, not only can you get a signature from me, but also even better, Greg Capullo. So that's a nice little bit of information. From there, I worked on the Hatchet series in American mythology, based on the movies of the same name. That's actually how I got my first ever cover gig. And then from there, I had to focus on school, so I did a couple pinups. Some of those didn't go released. I've got stuff for Cave Woman on the way. I've released my own sketchbooks, and actually the thing that I'm really the most proud of comic book wise that's come out recently, and it did take a little bit to get off the ground because of the whole world issue of COVID right now, but that's Razor.
Right.
So Peter, I don't know if you remember Razor from the 90s, Everett Hartso's book.
I do. Yeah,
So
I worked on it.
See, exactly. So London Night Studios, super familiar to you. I got to basically cross off a lot of their characters in one swoop. I did a couple covers for Razor's Edge Anthology when we relaunched that. There's a London Night pinup book that just came out that's basically 90% me.
Nice.
So I got to draw a lot of the characters. I got to draw Tommy Gun, who's on my banner back there. I got to do Lethal Strike. Got to do Razor herself. Actually, the only time I got to draw on a cover was for the pinup book. But I had like Poison, Morbid Angel, all the main characters from the London Night Studios universe, the Razorverse. It was cool to touch them all in one fell swoop. That was the last real big thing that I worked on. Again, I do this really casually because I have a day job that I do, and I do commissions on the side. I do cover work and stuff, commissions. I have a lot of stuff that's just kind of right now sitting in production. So I don't know when it's going to release, and I can't really say what all it is. In fact, hopefully soon I'll be working on something from some guys in a really cool entertainment field that I know a lot of us are fans of. So hopefully I can make an announcement about that sooner than later.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, the average comic book artist usually has multiple things going on. It's like I certainly do.
Got to stay busy.
Yeah. But yeah, I worked on Razor back in the day. I did a bunch of inks for Everett. One of the artists I worked for is the artist of my book Retro. So like Rich Fisha, I know from back when. And what was I going to say? Yeah, you know, Everett's a crazy guy. It was fun to work with.
Yeah, you know, it'd be cool to work with him personally at some point.
Yeah, he's all over the place. You know, he's a busy man.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, but I always like, you know, like the character raiser and the potential of the book, and you know, it's like the story is crazy, and of course, you know, for those that know, she was like the bad girl of the 90s. And I got to Bill Tucci did a Razor She story in the Razor Annual, and I get to ink like the last 6 pages of that, so that was fun.
Was that intimidating to ink over Tucci?
A little bit, because I think still to this day it's pretty much the only one or one of the few people to ink them. You know, he prints out a lot of his work. He prints out just the pencils, and it's very rare that you see him inked.
Oh yeah, because Billy's a super tight pencil. I love Billy's work, and that's cool, you know, because you got to work with him and on She in the prime of She, you know, or really, you know, the early debut, the height of the bad girl craze of the 90s.
Deborah, you know, Billy's wife, told me that, you know, they did a She omnibus, but they're going to do a She omnibus with all the crossover stories. So She Razor will be in there. So I'll wait for that to come out. It'd be fun to see the old work.
Yeah, I mean, I'll definitely pick up a copy because I have a lot of She. I do not have anywhere close to all of it. So
yeah, there's a ton of it now.
It's difficult to piece it together.
Yeah. But yeah, Billy's another guy. You know, it's like, you know, really just like go-getter and independent guy that everybody knows, and he's, you know, with the professionals on YouTube and all that.
Yeah, Billy is definitely a badass.
Yeah. So so I expect you enjoy horror, and let me mention this. This is a fun little fact. You mentioned Hatchet. I know a friend of mine was the art director in the movie, the first movie, and she also worked on a couple of the sequels. Yeah, Zoe Bones.
That's really cool.
But yeah, you know, I heard there was a comic too, so that's fun. It's always great, like, you know, cross media. See characters we love and all that.
Oh, absolutely.
So yeah, I was gonna say, like, you love horror. Like, I imagine, like, you know, comic book work you do is horror related, that kind of thing.
It's generally darker. You know, I definitely pull my influences from horror. You know, that's where I started. So, you know, you'll always see a lick of horror influence. I mean, I use a lot of shadows in my work, a lot of bold blacks. And whenever I get to draw a nice, like, forest or jungle, I definitely go crazy, you know, because the environment, man, that's where all the slashers are at, dude. You gotta give them some kind of cover of darkness.
Yeah, absolutely. So what artists inspired your work?
That's a tough question. Because there's a lot, you know. As far as horror goes specifically, my biggest influence is definitely Bernie Wrightson. And with Bernie, then after that, I would definitely, you know, even though he's not technically really a horror artist, but he did, like me, start in horror. But Greg Capullo is a massive influence on me. In fact, I always have Spawn 100 by my art table at all times. It is the single best issue of Spawn, in my opinion. It's just beautiful in every way. The story, the pencils, the inks, the colors, everything. Best issue of Spawn. It's my favorite piece that Greg has ever done. I always have some of Bernie's Swamp Thing stuff lying around, because it's just wonderful, beautiful reference material. I always have the 90s Bernie Wrights and Monster cards. I have a complete set that sits by my table at all times, so I can always just look at those for inspiration. Another big influence of mine is J. Scott Campbell, specifically his Danger Girl run. I always have the first Danger Girl story at my art table. It's just beautiful. Everything about it, the way he expressed his faces, the way he did his backgrounds, everything. Can't stress enough how big of an influence that book has been on me. Trying to get better at drawing my female forms. Campbell's a big influence on me. I don't know if it really reflects in my work, but it's definitely something that I draw a lot of inspiration from. And I also, love to read interviews from Campbell and everything. McFarlane is a massive influence on me, massive influence.
Of course.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys that I could really go through and tell you exactly what I love about them. John Byrne became more of an influence on me recently, because I really enjoy his Alpha Flight work. I love his storytelling. So whenever I'm practicing sequentials for my creator-owned book that I'm working on the side, I definitely have to sometimes take a look at some John Byrne stuff to get a better feel of how to run my pages and make them read better. You know what I mean? Because John was a master at that.
Yeah. I mean, his work it's just really clear, storytelling. Very, very clear. Like, because there's splashy people and there's just boring artists, you could say. But John Byrne, he's always entertaining. He, maybe he throws in a bigger image here and there, but he's not too splashy, compared to like more modern day artists. But I always loved him for his storytelling, definitely. Like, because he obviously he did X-Men, and he can have a whole cast of characters and still, you could still understand even without reading it, like, what's going on and who's talking, what's happening, that's highly important in comics,
Visual medium.
Yeah. I mean, and you talk about Bernie Wrightson, and I started out as an inker. I mean, that's been most of my career, but definitely was soaking up a lot of Bernie early on, and throughout my career. Like, I just love his Frankenstein work, his killer. Like, that will never be beat by anybody. Like,
Absolutely not. Yeah.
But yeah, his Swamp Thing, which is very different, still is magical. Like, the art on those pages. I always want to go back and look at them again and learn, like, with new eyes. Like, as you grow as an artist and you look at something you might have looked at years ago, it's like, oh wait, I see so much more now. It's like it's always, you're always growing, always learning, always trying to soak up the best of what's out there.
Oh, absolutely.
So you work traditionally mostly, or all? Is that
I only work on pen and paper.
Yeah.
I
Awesome.
like occasionally I'll have to maybe like move my signature, and so that I'll work it into Photoshop because maybe I threw my signature in a crop zone on accident, or it wasn't clear
Right.
enough. So occasionally there are times I have to maybe edit something, but 99.99999% of all of my works are purely physical. And the reason I'm all for that is, one, it's classical. Bernie didn't work digitally in the height of his career. In fact, I don't know if Bernie ever really dabbled in digitals even towards the end. I think it was always pen and paper. I'm not always great with technology. I don't have a lot of patience for technology, and there is just there's a definite fear in, oh shit, if I don't have my computer hooked up to a good surge protector and I forgot to hit save, what if my computer shuts out or the power goes out? I just lost 8 hours of work. Whereas The worst thing that I can do with an original here is maybe pour my Dr. Pepper on it or spill some ink on it. But even then, there's generally maybe a creative way that I can get around doing that, or maybe redrawing the piece. And I always have the original. You know what I mean? There's a physical piece of evidence that piece existed, or it's something that can go into a collector's hands and be appreciated. You know what I mean? Whereas with digital stuff, unless you make a blue line and you ink that blue line, or you make prints, and if you make prints, I mean, it's not original at that point. But you know, as original as you can get with digital is strictly blue line. There's nothing to be held. There's no history. There's nothing that a fan or maybe even another artist can really sit there and physically appreciate. They can't feel the textures of the page, you know. That's the beauty of physical versus digital. And I'm not, you know, disputing digital at all. I totally get why guys work digitally. It is a great medium. It's just not for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You know, I mean, I work in, you know, traditional, and it's like I've been doing this 30 years, and I don't see myself never, you know, like getting to a point where I don't enjoy it anymore. It's like I freaking love it, and in part, it's like why I haven't totally just given up inking at this point, because I love working on different artists. I love inking. I love learning new skills, and doing new things, and you know, I want to draw more, but you know, it's like I have to find that balance where I'm working on my own book, and then I'm inking other people on the side and all that jazz.
Yeah.
It's always, you know, it's always a challenge as a freelancer, even if you're doing this full time. Yeah, for sure.
Oh, you know, I definitely feel that.
So do you have any preference of the tools you work with, like brushes? What are you using?
I mean, I've always been a Micron guy. Something that I've always wanted to dabble in is, you know, traditional means of crow quill. I've just never really had the opportunity to sit there and experiment with it. I mean, I guess I could absolutely make the time to experiment with it. But you know, I've just tried to do my best to improve with tech pins. I do use this occasionally to spot blacks. It's my Pentel pocket brush, which was actually told to me by a guy named Brian Silverbacks. So I found out about this nifty tool from him. That was pretty cool. Occasionally, man, I'll crosshatch with a fucking ballpoint pen. You know what I mean? Just because I get a really nice smooth line out of it. If I don't need to go crazy in certain areas, I will literally use a ballpoint pen. I love me a Presto whiteout pen. You know, I'm not real fancy. You know what I mean? I'm super cost effective. And I only work in black and white. You know what I mean? Like the color presentation art that you saw from the campaign, dude, that's a pack of Crayola color pencils. You know what I mean? And the way I saw that, you know, not that I'm anywhere close to Jason Jensen, but that's what Jason Jensen did coloring, you know, Chaos books back in the 90s. It was just whatever he had lying around. And that dude's a fucking master with limited resources. Yeah. And so I was like, well, he did it with Crayolas. I will at least throw my hat in the ring with it. Nowhere close as far as quality goes. I don't like coloring. I'm sure I could get better at it, but I definitely like the collaborative effort. Like behind me, that Tommy gun piece, that's colored by Dan Kemp, who worked on Spawn, a lot of Tactile books. Yeah. He colored JRJR, Spider-Man Run, colored Campbell Spider-Man covers. So, you know, I love that, you know, and I work with his brother Dave on a couple things. We've got some covers coming out for some independent books. And, you know, I've had Dave color some pieces I've used for test stuff and some unreleased covers. I love working with Gene Jimenez from Guerrilla Graphics back in the 90s. He worked on a lot of shit back then. Like Arachnus. Love that book. But Gene's great, you know, so there's a collaborative thing, you know, so being just black and white definitely keeps my preferences in one focused area, and it also keeps it somewhat cost effective. So
yeah, no, I hear you, man. Like, I've been mostly black and white my most of my career. I've dabbled a little bit, and I plan to color my own book, but I'll be doing that with, I have a tablet, so I'll be computer coloring, but I got somebody to flat it, and I'm gonna initially go very 80s types coloring anyway, very simplistic, maybe a little animation kind of influence to it. We'll see, but there's nothing wrong with just doing black and white, man. You can spend your whole lifetime doing just black and white and grow, your skills and all that. If you want to learn quill, I can do a session with you at some point, and because quill, it's like I use brush and I use quill. I use repeatograph for more like technical stuff and backgrounds and whatnot and whatever. Quill is awesome, but you have to work through the pain initially. It's pain in the ass,
oh God, especially if you do blue line.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
In this image you see here, I meant to mention this image. This is blue line. Like I use red instead of blue. It's the same difference. But this is digital pencils, and I'm just inking over it. Which you can do. I actually like the way the image is looking red anyway.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I can teach you some basics to get you started with quill. The thing is, like, the ink you use for a brush, you have to thin down a little bit when you're using a quill, otherwise it jams up really quickly. That's a tip. I clean the tip of my nib with a X-Acto blade. Some people use cloth and water and all this jazz, but I love scraping on it. Somehow that works for me. And just like find your rhythm with it where you're not tearing up the paper too much. Like, it's naturally gonna strip it away. But as long as you're not stabbing the paper, then you're all right.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'll have to take you up on that one of these days.
So, do you have some of your creator books published right now, or is that something you're just working on and eventually you'll get it out there?
I have published the characters in my sketchbook, but really it's the protos of the characters. So like since I printed the book, I make my sketchbooks. For those of you who don't know in the audience, no one would know this. But my sketchbook is called Gabriel Mangum Raw. I've produced 2 volumes. It's an annual thing for me, and it's just for fun pieces and shit. The first volume is actually really special to me because 2020 had a lot of personal family issues that bled through it for me, and I was in a massive artistic rut for a good, God, dude, like 3/4 of that year. I did not draw jack shit. I had just a massive drop off in artistic ability. And so Raw collects a lot of like backerboard sketches that I was doing to get back into drawing. And so, that's why I named the book as such, because none of it's polished. It's a little like etchy around the, the edges of the piece. Some of the line weights aren't perfect in it. It's definitely getting back into form. And so now I've just carried it out. Raw Volume 2 debuts my character Gunner. And his side girl / partner in crime, Passion. And, I'll be coming out with something eventually for them, but they debut first in Raw Volume 2. And there's some subtle changes that are going to be made to them by the time they go from Raw to, the actual #1 of their book. Whenever I get cracking on that. Every time I start working on pages for my book, there's always something that comes up, which is a great problem to have.
Yeah.
I was working on pages, and then I started doing my Operation Recall stuff. So,
yep, that takes priority. Well, I mean, the trick is just to make sure you're putting in some work on it every week. Like, maybe not every day, maybe not for hours and hours, but at least pushing it forward. you know, in the chat is Unhinged, and it's an artist named Jason. And I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name, but his work is very raw, very lots of energy, and somebody like maybe you'd be interested in, should check out. You know, definitely. It's like I have a lot of, you know, a lot of my artist friends pop in here. It's like everybody's talented to some degree.
Oh, absolutely. It's all a matter of harnessing it, you know, and using it for what you want to achieve.
Use it for good. That's what I say.
The occasional graffiti tagging.
Yeah.
That's not something I've done, but I have a funny story about that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, some park in Arizona got graffiti tagged, and someone wrote Mangum family rules, and so I got a bunch of death threats from Arizonians on Facebook.
Oh geez.
Yeah, that was like a scourge for about a week, because some Facebook keyboard detectives looked up the name Mangum, and I happened to be the first person that popped up. And of course, my profile photo at the time was me being a teenager, and so I don't know if you're a wrestling fan, but I was wearing a WWF DX Suck It jersey, and so I looked like a punk in the photo, and so some random lady just happens to assume that the first kid that pops up had to have been responsible for this, considering that he lives in another state.
Yeah.
And so for about a week, I got blasted online. People telling me just the craziest shit for a week, blaming me for something that I would not have had any time to do at all. So yeah, well, somebody used their talent for bad, and it definitely was not me.
Right.
I think I was working on Hatchet at the time when that happened.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, it's like I lived in a world without the internet, and there are definitely lots of benefits to it, but there's also lots of crazy shit that goes down like that. You know.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that was definitely a fun time to be alive.
Oh man. Yeah, I worry for the children when I hear stuff like that. Yeah.
It was funny. The lady that started it all, she ended up finding out the hell that she caused, and she was so apologetic. It was great. Like, she oh my god, it was so funny. She like messaged me, and she's like, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry." I'm like, "Well, you can't fix any of this, you know. How about you just don't fucking jump to conclusions, lady, you know?"
Yeah.
Yeah, the first search result isn't normally what you're looking for.
Because it's all like there's real information out there, but a lot of times it's bits and pieces, and if you just read this section and miss all the other facts about it, you're not getting the whole story, and can lead to many disasters.
So I'm sure somebody in Arizona still thinks that I wrote on some rocks.
Yeah. You know, you can't convince everybody of the truth. So
yeah, I just kind of rolled with it. I just you can't respond to those people. You just got to wait till they're proven wrong.
Right. Yeah.
So,
just say you're an idiot and move on.
Pretty much, yeah. You know, you just can't let them get a rise. And plus, it's a funny story. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
So whoever did that, shout out to them. Oh man. Yeah, dude. I mean, it's a crazy world, the internet. But hey, the internet's great because it leads to most of the opportunities that I've taken advantage of in the art world, and the internet's also responsible for why I got into toy design with this this first appearance here. So definitely can't be mad at the internet, you know.
No, it can, you know, continue to lead you in good directions for sure. You know.
No, absolutely.
Make your dreams come true.
Yeah, we're halfway there. I've made the joke to my dad that having an action figure come out in the GI Joe style that I designed and is me, that will actually rival the moment when my kid is born one day. Of course, it won't be as good once I have, an actual child, but it will definitely, be close. That'll be some argument fodder. If my kid messes up, I'll be like, hey, that action figure right there, that was a bigger deal than you. No, I'm just kidding. I couldn't do that. But yeah, it's definitely a big moment because I'm almost like, as far as my fanboyness towards this, I'm shoot back to Operation Recall. As a kid at heart and as a fan, it's almost like, wow, nothing else that I could do in comics or really anything. And I say this, of course there could be something cooler. But right now there's nothing that I could do that would ever top this. You know what I mean? Getting to be a GI Joe essentially. And getting to have the original design team refine my design. There's no better experience, that will never happen again. This whole thing is very lightning in a bottle. It's got to go now, you know what I mean? Because we'll never get that opportunity again, especially as time advances. Let's just put it like that. You know what I mean?
Well, maybe Todd McFarlane will turn you into a Spawn villain and then make an action figure.
I can only dream.
But yeah, you mentioned Greg Capullo, man. I'll have to look up issue 100. Like, I loved his work on Spawn and Batman and everything in between. His pencils are tight and loose at the same time, and so much to learn from just looking at it. His raw pencils.
Absolutely.
As well as his finished work,
Well, and Todd and Danny Miki, I mean, dude, they did so much to just go right there with Greg. It's also hand in hand, you know what I mean? Like, you can tell the influences of, one or the other, but I mean, it just came together as such a beautifully cohesive book. I mean, it's unmatched as far as quality goes. It is the best issue of Spawn, hands down. I don't want to give spoilers to anybody who hasn't read this book that came out 22 years ago, almost. But the ending, it's spectacular. And it really, from a storyline perspective, it definitely motivates Spawn to be his most aggressive, to meet his in-game goal, and really just kind of wrap up the first main story arc, I should say, because, Spawn still goes to this day, and that's wonderful. But there's something to be said about the very first era, the first decade of Spawn that closes out in number 100. It's just beautiful.
It's over 300 issues now, and is Todd still working on the movie? Like, I know that was in the works.
I do not know. As a fan, I don't know, and I wish that I could ask Todd and get some insider information, but I hope so. I'd love to see a new one. I personally really like the 97 movie, or it was 97. I love the first Spawn movie. It was great, and I really love the animated series. That to me rivals Batman and X-Men as far as being the best comic book series ever translated into a TV show. Some people didn't like how the storyline was translated, but I think it follows the first 10 issues really well, as a matter of fact. And I mean, just the art direction itself was great. Todd worked on the show, Chance Wolf worked on the show, I believe Greg worked on the show to some capacity. So I mean, they pulled from the source material in a lot of ways. This is beautifully done. So I mean, I would really like to see the HBO series continue. I know it'd be probably really expensive to animate, but it'd be an endeavor that I think would pay off, ratings wise, because there's so much material that they can cover. You know what I mean? Especially now, so I would almost rather see the TV show come back than a movie, since there hasn't been news about the movie in a long time. But ultimately I'm down for whatever, you know what I mean? As a fan, I buy the figures that come out still. So
do you know Dale Guillaume the pit.
I love Dale, man. His pit run is phenomenal. It's one of my favorite image books of all time. I saw that for
I got to ink him
Kickstarter.
recently.
How was that to ink Keown?
Oh, it was excellent. Now, okay, so this is Reaper Destroyer character, Joe Sonntag, which is on Indiegogo in demand right now.
Yeah, Bat's working on it too,
Joe
right?
got Dale to pencil the cover, and I'm not 100%, but I think Joe's gonna have Dale's pencils colored over. So I asked for a scan of the pencils and just to ink it at doing fan inks. You know, it's something I never do, but I love Dale's work. And so yeah, I in a couple of streams, you know, recently I just inked this piece up. And yeah, I like the way it came out. Lots of people seem to like the way it came out. Joe loved it. So Joe's going to use it for some merchandise on his campaign. We'll find out what. But yeah, it was amazing to ink over his work, and really, like, you know, I inked it in such a way that I wouldn't normally ink, and I'm glad for it. You know, it's like it really gave me a fresh look at what I could do.
Oh, dude, that's bad.
And I can't wait for, you know, the new pit, whatever that will be. Like he did say he's doing an omnibus, so he's going to collect what's out there already. So I'll definitely pick that up.
I'm excited for the omnibus because that book has been a real pain in the ass for me to collect. You know, because I wasn't around for the original line, so you know, every little bit of pit that I've been able to soak in, it's all been at the hands of however I can find it. So like, you know, the image stuff is somewhat easy to find, but once it goes into the full, you know, creator-owned territory with full bleed, fuck, dude, right. I think I have like 3 issues, and one of those is like a Canadian print of it. So I think the issues in like fucking French.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm a big Pit fan too, and Dale had an awesome Pit figure that came out as a Build-A-Figure from Toy Biz and their legendary comic book heroes toy line. And that was on my radar for a long time, and then people just started just skyrocketing the prices of those things. So one day I'll get my hands on that, and maybe I'll even be able to get, you know, Dale to sign like the foot or something. You know, I'd love to meet Dale, just to pick his brain, talk art, you know, see his originals, feel the originals, see the kind of texturing that comes off of his boards. I've always been really curious about that.
Yeah.
His work is often very smooth.
He's dynamite, and he's you know, he's been on more and more streams, hanging out, and occasionally he's working, but he's not working on screens. You know, but he does show off some artwork every now and then. He showed off a bunch of, you know, pit drawings, and it's just he's just amazing. You know, it's like really early. You know, I've told this story a couple of times already, but really early in my career, I worked for a very small publisher that Dale was working for, and I just missed. You know, like I was like, oh, I would love to work over this guy Dale's work, and he's like, oh, he just finished a book, so he's done. I was like, oh, damn it.
What company was
it? It was, well, the guy's name was Barry Blair. It was like he mostly did elf books, like Elf Quest came out. I don't know if you know that book.
Yeah. Did they print X Mutants?
No.
Okay.
No, he was tiny. That was Malibu.
Oh, really? Yeah, I gotta look back at that because I picked up some of Dale's early work through that.
Yeah, I think so. Anyway, yeah, Barry was small time self-publisher back in the late 80s, early 90s, I guess. And I think Dale's book was Demon Force or Dragon Force, I think it was. Anyway, it was like simplified Dale, and it was just really beautiful but simple. And you know, he's gotten so much further with his art. What I'm worried about is I hope it's inked, because a lot of recent work where he's doing this pencil shading, it's like, that's really nice, but I like your line work. You know,
There's definitely something to be said about a finished black and white piece, because I love pencils from a lot of guys too, but I do like the collaborative effort. You know, I brought it up with coloring, but it's especially true for pencils and inks. To see two styles mesh together, it can be a very beautiful thing. You know what I mean? There's
yeah,
tons of great duos. You know, I'm a big fan of Capullo Mickey. Um, that's probably my favorite when I think of guys with their inkers. I love Eric Bossadua and Matt Banning, or Silvestri and Matt Banning,
right.
Casada and Jimmy. You know what I mean? Uh,
Yeah,
just they're just some really iconic duos as far as pen and inks go, and I love the collaborative effort. I love seeing like Rob Liefeld with Frege. That's a great combination.
yeah,
I love seeing Brett Booth and Norm Ratman. Like, I was a big fan of their DC work. That stuff was
yeah.
phenomenal, super smooth. I love seeing Sal Regula over Brett, or Sal over Jim. That's good. Scott Williams and Jim Lee, great combination. I love inks over pencils, to say the least. You know, because
Yeah,
it brings so much to the table. You know.
yeah, and you know, it looks sharp. It looks tight. Um, obviously it depends on the artist, but
Yeah.
but it's just, I love art. I love comics, and that's why I'm here, folks. So yeah, we've gone over an hour. Like, is there anything I made sure to talk about before we go? Send people in certain directions,
Let's see. I
anything
mean,
like that?
everybody definitely check out Operation Recall on Kickstarter. That's pretty much one of my big priorities right now, because I'm funded as far as my figure goes, and the first, I believe, 6 figures are currently funded. And in the first Kickstarter campaign, we are trying to get as many figures of the initial 16 funded as possible. So, the more funding, the more fans we can make through this, the more people's dreams can come true, the more cool figures we have to add to our shelves, and the more work that we give to the old design team. You know what I mean? And that's definitely a phenomenal thing. I'm going to be in Oklahoma on July 30th at the Pavilion for New World Comic Con. So anybody that's in Oklahoma, you can come meet me. We can talk. We can talk toys, Operation Recall, my career, Razor, whatever. Hop on Instagram, follow me there. I'm at _Gabriel_Mangum. You can just look up Gabriel Mangum. You're going to find me. You're going to find my photo. Right now, it's actually my character Breacher from Operation Recall. I'm always trying to boost my Instagram. I don't get a lot of love on there. So, more follows, please. It definitely helps get my
Yeah,
work
I'll
further.
make sure to include that in the description box. Your Instagram. I'm not sure if I'm following you. I might be, but I follow a ton of people, so I lose track. But if I'm not, I will be. Yeah, it's like I really like your action figures, really cool, and the artwork I've seen of your work, and can't wait to see you do more and more, and definitely, like, when you crowdfund or however you're releasing your own creator own project, definitely give me a ring, and I'll have you on again for sure.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm slow going on that. I'm kind of bad with that one, but
Yeah.
again, it's because I something else comes up, be it a pinup or cover or Operation Recall. So
Yeah.
but yeah,
We'll
I
have
mean,
you
but my creator-owned book, it's definitely a passion project. And no pun
cool.
intended, since that's the name of one of the characters. But it's a special book in a lot of ways for me. So I can't wait to talk more about that when I actually have more done on it. So I'll definitely hit you up about that.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming on today, Gabriel. It's been great.
Thank you for having me, man. It's been great talking. getting to speak to the wider side of the internet, so.
All right, everybody. If you're watching this live or watching this later, subscribe if you haven't. Hit the like button so more